it's about time we get back into gaming on the channel. Zeroxshinobi. Square Enix released the original Star Ocean game on PlayStation 4 and Nintendo Switch, and I'm gonna be talking about it. But before I do that, be sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram over here. The name is displayed. And if you're not aware of this, I finally released after nearly 2 years of lazy editing. I released my top 10 Xbox 360 games of all time video. It's pretty long-winded, but you know, it could just be me, but it's pretty entertaining. So be sure to check it out if you haven't already, especially if you're into Xbox 360. So let's get into this review of my impressions, because first and foremost, I did not complete this game. I clocked in about 4 or 5 hours. I just wanted to give my general impressions, because if this game does well, guess what? We're gonna get Star Ocean 2, which is the pinnacle of the series for many. And it's already in Japan on PlayStation 4, so all they have to do is just take the PSP translation and just, I don't know, do their coding magic. And yeah, voila, it's on PSN and freaking eShop, right? I'm not even asking for a physical copy. That would be great. But just give me the damn game. I want to play it, okay? Like many, the first game that I played in the series was Star Ocean 2, The Second Story. Now, during the time of its release, I really wasn't into like action RPGs. I was really heavy into like turn-based RPGs like Final Fantasy 7, 8, Wild Arms, Thousand Arms, Saga, Frontier, you name it, man. I was really balls deep into those games. When my friend from church lent me his copy of Star Ocean 2, which was the first entry we received here in the US, I really wasn't, I don't know, I wasn't impressed. I just didn't really care. I was like, the voice acting is pretty bad and I'm not feeling this battle system. Gave it back to him, and you know, years later, I saw on PSM, the unofficial PlayStation magazine, this spread showing screenshots of Star Ocean 3 for PS2, and man, I was blown away. I was like, I need this game right now. I need it to come out, and it didn't come out for years in the US. When it did, I remember vividly on graduation day, my mom gave me $100. Went to a game store called Game Express, and I bought it. This is the original copy. Man, this game, bro. Yo, I clocked in about 300 hours into this, like, in total. Like, I did like 2 playthroughs. The first playthrough, I just beat the game. And when I beat the game, I went back to Game Express, which is the store I got this from, right? And I bought Beautiful Joe on PS2. And I bought this, the strategy guide. And I'll be honest, I mean, the strategy guide, the only thing good about it is the maps, the crafting information, and the enemy drops. You know, if you want to know like the best tips for grinding and farming and just like pro tips in general, just go to GameFAQs or FAQs, however you pronounce it. That's where all that information is going to be. Then, somewhere down the road, Square decided to release Star Ocean 1, which was originally released on Super Nintendo, Super Famicom, because it never came out here in the US. They made a remake on PSP, the PlayStation Portable, and it was more in line with Star Ocean 2, which was also released on PSP. So the first game now mirrored the second one. Battle system was about the same. They did a whole bunch of tweaks, and anyone who's a fan of the second game, they probably loved the first one on PSP. I didn't get to play it. I had a PSP. I even had it hacked, but I just didn't really care at the time. See, if I remember correctly, I think I already got Star Ocean 4. I don't know, I could be mistaken. Star Ocean 4, The Last Hope. It was pretty good. I didn't do the post-game content. I completed the story. Because I had such a connection with the third game, probably due to nostalgia, this one didn't really do it for me. The battle system is probably the best in the series, but other than that, I mean, I don't know. PS3 later got a port called International, and it's practically the same game. The only difference is that you can toggle between the 360 character artwork or the Japanese version. It's no new content other than that. And unfortunately I sold both copies, that's why you're not seeing it here. But I bought it, I clocked in about 2-3 hours, and I said this is the same shit, and I just sold it. Where then released Star Ocean 5 on PS4. That game pretty much is universally hated among fans of the Star Ocean series. Now, I personally did not play the game, but what's important is that during the time of release, I don't know if it was like a pre-order bonus or something, but during the time of release of Star Ocean 5, they also took the PSP version of 2 and they ported it over to PlayStation 4, and they just made it HD. According to YouTube footage, it looks fucking amazing, alright? Unfortunately, it never came out. And that's where this video comes in. Maybe if this game does well, we'll get that version, right? So, Star Ocean 1. Let's get into it. You take the role of our hero, Roderick, who is accompanied by his 2 friends. They seem to be like these protectors of their village. They seem to be going through the motions, and one day they get a letter from a neighboring town that tells them of some sort of disease that has inflicted the village. Now, anyone who comes into contact with the disease turns into stone in just a matter of days. Roderick and company go to investigate, and yeah, they end up in space. I don't really want to get into spoilers here. You should play the game for yourself, but just know that the story isn't really anything mind-blowing or groundbreaking. See, Star Ocean is basically a fantasy series sprinkled with sci-fi elements. The game has a great battle system.
We've got enemies.
Give us a little fun, huh?
Spirit! Spirit!
Explosive kick!
Firestorm! Spirit!
Explosive kick!
We could have gone
over
easy and
already?
still won.
A little basic compared to the later entries in the series, but you get a multitude of attacks, standard attacks, special attacks. Super Nintendo's battle system is pretty much the same, but it's restricted to a single screen. On the Super Nintendo version, you can either press A to attack your enemy or the shoulder buttons to initiate one of your special attacks. Once you press one of those buttons, they automatically attack and come into contact with the enemy. You cannot move freely like you can in this remake. And in this remake, although you can move freely and walk up to enemies and change your target and stuff, it's still somewhat automated. See, you can be across the screen and press the attack button or the shoulder buttons, and their character's still gonna walk up to the enemy and beat the shit out of them. You know, some annoyances, in fact, with this freely moving stuff is that some of your allies can just simply get in the way. And it's very frustrating when that happens. I'm just like, why are you in the fucking way? And when they're in the way, you could miss attacks. So I guess there's some strategy there, but if anything, it's a little annoying. You can't actually select difficulty off the rip. It seems to just get progressively harder, which is a good thing, but sometimes you just find yourself mashing the X button or the attack button. And battles, by the way, are random encounters. Whether it's in the world map or overworld, or in dungeons, they're all random battles, okay? You can't see the enemies, you're just gonna run from one side of the screen to the other, and more than likely you're gonna get into one, at the very least, one fight. And when it comes to backtracking, it can get a little annoying, but hey, this is as classic gets, right? Speaking of classic as it gets, this game doesn't hold your hand after battles. If you're not managing your items and your funds, you are going to have a hard time. I'm a little spoiled with games in 2019 because if one of your party members die mid-fight and the battle ends and you don't have resurrection elixirs to bring them back to life, they're gonna stay out the battle. They're not going to automatically get resurrected with 1 HP. That's something that happens in a lot of JRPGs nowadays. Your party member dies and at the end of the battle, you just have them revived automatically with 1 HP, and you can just use your healing items to bring them back to life. Yeah, that's not happening in this game. Also, if you're poisoned and the battle ends, you're still poisoned. If you're not buying healing items, you don't get them regularly, at least from the amount that I've played so far. I ran out of healing items. You get skill points with each level that you gain, and these skill points, you can distribute them in a multitude of ways. You can either, there's like these different categories of skills like combat, herbs, whole bunch of stuff, right? A whole ton of categories. And if, let's say for instance, if you were to use skill points on healing item category, when you consume a healing item, it will replenish more health. Some of the other skills that you get are like, you press the attack button, you can increase the chances of you automatically teleporting to the enemy without you having to see the animation of them running to them, which can be kind of slow at times. If let's say you have allies in the way, you can just bypass them. You'll automatically be in front of the enemy using your skills. So that's kind of cool. You can cut down on the SP special points, which is like MP. Like you'll reduce the amount used when you're using these specials in battle. There's tactics that you can assign per party member, because you can only use one actively in battle, and your party members will be used by the computer. So you can tell them to just stand back, you can tell them to heal, to support you, support the allies, or you can just tell them to go all out, which I don't recommend, because if you do tell them to go all out, they're just gonna go all out with their SPs, and you're gonna end up with 0 SP, and you don't want to be in that situation. Again, it's basic compared to like Star Ocean 4, but it's pretty cool. And again, even the Super Nintendo version, it's about the same. The only difference is that you can't freely move in battle. That's about it. Because the game is a Super Nintendo remake, there's quite a bit of changes. I did play for this video, the Super Nintendo version, and seeing the two back to back, it's pretty impressive how well the Super Nintendo version holds up. I go as far as to say that the Super Nintendo version in some ways looks better than this PS4 Switch release. There's a lot of stuff on the Super Nintendo that at first glance you go, whoa, this shit really pushed the hardware. Like the opening looks freaking crazy even today. This new version on PS4, sure it was a PSP remake originally, but some of the anime sequences, I don't know how I feel about it. I mean, I just don't like the art style. I really don't. Because it came from a PSP game, it seems to not be HD, and it's interlaced, and it looks pretty bad on PS4. The sprite work, it seems a lot more expressive on Super Nintendo. I'm going to compare a lot here. In the game, when you walk across water on the Super Nintendo, there's like reflections of the sprites, and holy crap, I don't remember Chrono Trigger or even Final Fantasy VI having that. I think the only game that had that was Tales of Phantasia. This remake is supposed to be more like Star Ocean 2. They added an overworld world map. So, you know how Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9, you leave a town and you're in the world map. You're just like traversing, right? The original Super Nintendo version did not have that. So they added it in this one. And when they added it, it kind of takes away from some of the stuff on the Super Nintendo. See, when you leave town on the Super Nintendo version, there's like these mini dungeons. They connect from one town to another. Look at this. Like when you're walking across this area, you see a spaceship. So seeing this is pretty cool. Like I was like, wow, that's so cool that they have like a spaceship here. But in this version, this remake, the spaceship, because it looks more like a PS1 game, it looks pretty bad. I mean, I was just like, what the fuck is that? Like, is that the ship? No fucking way. And, you know, you look at it and, I don't know, I'm not really impressed with it. Again, very nitpicky. This is subjective, by the way. Some people may prefer this over the other. One thing I will say is that the towns, they stand out a lot more. See, on the Super Nintendo Famicom one, towns seem a little generic. I guess you can say that you can make these towns in RPG Maker. I mean, the tiles themselves look like they're just copy pasted across. Like, I don't know. It has this style and this look that just looks generic. That's the only word that I can think of right now. This remake, there's like these cool angles and these unique viewpoints. This looks beautiful. Other than that, I mean, the game is pretty one-to-one. A little complaint here, you know, and it has to do with how old school it is. You can't save anywhere, and it's weird because this game is on Nintendo Switch. You can't save anywhere unless you just put the thing on sleep. So unless you're in the overworld, the world map you can save, just like classic RPGs, you can save in the world map. But if you're in town, you can't save anywhere unless you find a save point. And this game is not generous with save points. Like most dungeons that you enter, there's a save point in the beginning. But some of them don't have it. I'm like, what the hell? It's so weird. You know, if you're in a dungeon and you're in the middle and you gotta turn it off, guess what? You're kind of screwed. I remember back in the day on PS1, my dad turned off the PlayStation 1 several times, telling us to go to bed, and we would tell him, we gotta look for a save point, Dad. We gotta find a save point. He's like, I don't care. Boom, and he turned it off. He thought we were lying. He didn't understand what save points were. So here, I mean, I guess you can put the PlayStation 4 on sleep mode, right? And the Switch as well, but I don't know, like, I found that a little weird. I was playing the game and I'm like, man, this music sounds a lot like Golden Sun. These tracks sound exactly like a Golden Sun game, which also sound like Shining Force 3, which is one of the best RPGs ever, by the way, for the Sega Saturn. A lot of you guys did not play Shining Force 3 on Saturn. You missed out, okay? But I'm listening to the music and I'm just like, man, this music sounds a lot like Shining Force 3 and Golden Sun. I go right on Wikipedia. The same composer. I was just like, I knew it. I knew it. You see how on PlayStation 3's version of Star Ocean 4, you can toggle between the Western CGI character portraits and the Japanese version, which was only on the PS3 one. This one has something similar. So you can either use the PSP artwork, which is in line with the anime sequences. You can toggle between that art style or the new art style, which some guy, which he did, but Bacano, it's a very distinct art style. You see it and you go, oh, that's that guy from Bacano, I think it's, I don't know. I didn't watch the anime, but I heard it was pretty solid. Well, he did that, and this artwork is fucking fantastic, all right? And the only complaint that I have is that it's too good. It's so good that it doesn't match the sprite work. It's like, for instance, right? Like you meet Kenny and Ilya, the Earthlings of the game, and when you board their ship, they're using the starship uniforms, and I'm like, okay, this is kind of cool. Sprites don't match it, but whatever, okay? Then when you go to another planet, the artwork changes, but the sprites stay the same, and I'm just like, wait a minute. I was so confused. I thought the game glitched at first, but if you switch to the PSP artwork, you see the sprites actually match. That kind of sucks. There's no anime sequences for the new art style. That would be so expensive to do because of how detailed it is. It looks so amazing. Some of the characters just look completely different. Like Sias, this dude is buff as fuck, man. And what is his routine? But then you look at the PSP artwork and he looks like he's on a soy-filled diet. What's with this artwork? Not that it's bad. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying that they're radically different, okay? I think the game is properly priced at about 21 bucks. You can't go wrong. It's fun. I actually found myself having to turn it off earlier today. I was just like, oh man, I gotta turn this off. I actually gotta do this video, man. Let me turn this off. Again, I don't have an agenda here. Okay, I kind of do. But please support this game. Like, if you're really into JRPGs and you never played the PSP one or even the Super Nintendo original via fan translation patches, just pick it up. In my opinion, I fully recommend it at $21. So there you have it, guys. There's my reviewing impressions of Star Ocean 1 First Departure R. Hopefully we get the sequel here in the US. And yeah, if you have any questions, be sure to leave it in the comments and I'll be sure to answer it. And again, if you haven't checked out my top 10 Xbox 360 games of all time, be sure to see it in the description and in the card somewhere on screen, right? Guys, catch you later.